Alright guys, let's begin reading Mariko Tamaki's not even thinly veiled Wattpad fanfiction. The story opens up with arguably the most unbearable thing that this comic is constantly throwing at you. Annoying, pretentious monologues. Because, you know, you can't have a teen-oriented comic without the main character going into a pseudo-intellectual narration about their supposedly miserable life. Mandy, an angsty, unlikable teen, has been the daughter of a superhero all her life, and it's the only life she knows, and she doesn't like it very much. Since she's butthurt over her unfortunate upbringing, she has pathetically decided to change the way she looks so that she looks nothing like her, calling herself the not-so-cleverly titled Anti-Starfire. There's a whole page dedicated to showing off how she's so different from her parent. Right off the bat, that is peak high school cringe, but there's something extra embarrassing about it knowing that this is Mariko Tamaki's self-insert fantasy. Like, dressing yourself up like a goth in a desperate attempt to show off that you're not like the people around you is way too specific to not be a self-insert thing, you know what I mean? But never mind that, let's continue. The first few pages display the troubled relationship between Mandy and her mother, Starfire. She quietly monologues about her unrelatable angst, and her first major idiotic complaint is something that I'd like to dissect. At page 11, she goes on to say that Starfire has stopped talking to her about her appearance. And as the pages progress, Mandy goes on to describe her as a distant parent that's too busy doing superhero work in order to care about her daughter. And yeah, that's completely out of character for Starfire? Like, straight up, Starfire would never be a distant, careless parent. There have been many different renditions and interpretations of Starfire's character throughout the years, but her personality has remained the same in every single one of them. Okay, well, most of them. Starfire has always been characterized as the most emotionally driven member of the group in almost every version of Teen Titans I've seen her in. The cartoon, the comics, the animated adaptation, and so on. Hell, even the official DC Comics website has a description of her that confirms that. Look what it says right here. A bright-eyed, curious, and compassionate person, Tori is quick to make friends and quicker still to become the center of attention everywhere she goes. Starfire is the most heartfelt member of the group, because that's just her personality. And even the worst adaptations of Teen Titans shows that. But, over here, she's not at all? In this weird-ass graphic novel, Tamaki has written Starfire to be some seemingly uncaring parent that doesn't understand and has never tried to, that brings weird men home and runs away from her life problems. I'm gonna go deeper into it later, but it's all offensive to read. Another thing, by the last panel of page 11, she goes on to say, and I quote, "She never liked the way I look since I was 12. She wears less than a yard of fabric to work every day, yet somehow I'm the one who's dressing weird." Now, I'm gonna go ahead and completely ignore the backhanded slut-shaming and say that, that's how Starfire works? She needs to dress like that in order for her powers to function? You're her daughter, how do you not know that? Also, one more thing about this page that I just thought was really funny. Look at I like this drawing here of Mandy, fucking munching down that junk food. Fucking pig animal. Man, she's such a slut. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna fucking scarf down these cookies. I'm sorry, folks, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to offend anybody, I'm just trying to have some fun with this. This is a pretty miserable comic to read. Actually, since I'm on this, let me go ahead and give up the only compliment I will ever give to this piece of work. The art style. It's a super simplistic art style for a super simple story, and it fits really well for the story in that sense. But when anything complex needs to be drawn, it kinda doesn't work to me. Yoshitake's artistic abilities are very clearly only good for simple type stuff, because anytime something complex needs to be designed, like the characters in the background or environments, it looks like, well, it doesn't look bad, but it just looks like, you know that generic corporate art style that workplaces use for training videos on new employees and PowerPoint presentations and stuff? It looks like that. And I don't think that's a good thing, in my opinion. But never mind that, back to the story. Anyway, time skip to the next day, and school is in session. Mandy is in a conversation with a guidance counselor regarding going to college. Surprise, surprise, Mandy isn't interested in going to one. But the guidance counselor in question is being pretty kind about it. She's explaining to her that it's important for her to receive a further education. But, of course, Mandy quickly retorts like a rude asshole, feigning intellectual superiority, saying that college is just a lame sham to make you think you're getting ahead in life, when in reality, it just puts you into years of debt for the rest of your life. And, I mean, that last part's not totally untrue, but at the same time, it is a fact of life that the best and most important jobs out there require going to college to receive a proper education. You think you're gonna be able to do engineering on aircrafts with a fucking GED? The answer is no. So far, Mandy's personality is a checklist of dumbass cliches, and after this moment here, now we can add pretentious cuck that thinks she knows everything about the outside world despite having no experience with it onto that list. Like, it seems like this is supposed to be the writer trying to show that you're not supposed to like her right now, but then there's moments further into the comic that completely contradict that. Anyway, Mandy's not interested in going to college. She's only interested in getting as far away from her mother and the people that adore her as possible. How will she do this? Well, according to Mandy in page 18, she's going to go to France and learn French because French people don't have superheroes? Let me just quote what Mandy says in this page. French people are sophisticated. They read and eat pastries. This dialogue is so fucking horribly written. Why is she talking in fucking choppy ass sentences? Okay, most importantly, French people don't have superheroes, so there's no way they're going to care about Starfire. So, there's a lot to unpack here. So, Mandy is about to make a life-altering decision based off of pathetically trying to get away from her family's recognition, rather than further her education like someone with common sense would. So this moment is written to display the fact that Mandy is naive as fuck, right? If that is, then this is well done. But I don't think it is at all. Everything in this comic has been so terribly written that it's really hard to tell if Mandy's bad personality and dumbass decisions are something that's intentionally supposed to be unlikable, or if Mariko Tamaki is just shoving her own bad personality into this project and she doesn't realize how stupid it is when she writes it. See, this is why you should never make a self-insert integral to the story. Ever. Because you can't take any of the shit that the character is saying seriously. Mandy has been nothing but a blissfully ignorant jackhole since page 1, and the only individual she's sorta been kind to so far is her assembly line factory model best friend character Lincoln, who has literally no personality outside of serving as an exposition machine and wingman for Mandy. Oh yeah, and also, he's an anarchist. Yes. You see the way I just randomly delivered that information to you? That's the exact same way the comic tells you. It's just randomly thrown in, out of nowhere, for no reason, and is not emphasized in any way throughout this comic outside of dialogue that is painful to read because of how stilted it is. This is actually a really great opportunity to show off some more of the awful dialogue in this comic. Here, check this out. Are you wearing cologne? Mandy says. It's body spray. I can't even read this shit straight. I can't even read this with a straight face. Okay. It's body spray. I'm blending in with the masses. Who the fuck says that? There's another panel here where Mandy says, as an anarchist, you should be chucking this forced filtering of future ambitions with me. And this guy says, he completely unironically says, I'm going to college to destroy the system. He said like Okay. First of all, teenagers definitely don't talk like this. Like, okay, who the fuck says that? Who talks like this? And second of all, these two don't socialize like actual people. They kind of just speak like robots trying to sound like fucking humans, randomly diving into plot points when nothing important is happening. This isn't a one-time occurrence, by the way. Teenagers talk in this awkward-ass dialect all the time in this comic. There's a lot of different ways of describing this bad dialogue in particular, but in my opinion, the best way to summarize it would have to be what an out-of-touch boomer thinks teenagers speak like in modern day. Just a friendly reminder that Mariko Tamaki is an award-winning veteran writer. The next 10 to 20 pages displays her miserable high school life. She refuses to take her SATs because she thinks that college is a horrendous plague with no positive qualities. She has to avoid fanboys of Starfire because how dare people like superheroes. And of course, let's not forget the ultimate catalyst of all generic high school scenarios, the love interest with no personality. She likes this stupid girl called Claire and gets all nervous when she's around her. Surprise, surprise, Mandy is no ordinary goth. She's a gay goth. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with homosexuality, but there is something wrong with bad writing, and I'd like to take the time to point out the fact that Miss Tamaki is also a gay goth. I'm sure that's just a coincidence, though. But yeah, they hit it off, I guess, and love interest girl invites Mandy over her house for some homework or some nonsense like that. During their time, they engage in very deep intellectual conversation. And when I say intellectual conversation, I mean Mandy briefly stops to complain about William Shakespeare's Hamlet, of all things. What does she say in particular regarding that ancient-ass play? She says that the entire play would have been better if Ophelia was written by a girl. So, Mandy, who, as we all know, is Mariko Tamaki's self-insert character, is suddenly shoving feminist-level nonsense down your throat in this comic. Isn't that interesting? You know what? Nah, I'm overthinking it. That's what it is. I'm totally overthinking it. I'm sure it's just a total coincidence that the main character, who looks like the author, dresses like the author, acts like the author, and has the same sexual orientation as the author, is suddenly complaining about a super specific thing that only the author would think. I'm sure that's just a total fucking coincidence. Look, I do not think that self-insert characters are bad by default. I really don't. But it's the way that they're used and utilized in stories. That is what's important. If you want a self-insert character, it pretty much mandatorily has to be in the background, where it doesn't affect anything important in the story. Because when you do have a self-insert as an important character that affects the narrative, or even worse, is your main character, or even worse, is a love interest, I'm throwing up in my mouth just thinking about it, it's impossible to take anything that character says seriously, since you know for a fact that this is just a fucking author's mouthpiece. And said author is probably just throwing her own thoughts and opinions into the comic. This panel of Mandy complaining about a random-ass play is Ray Rodriguez levels of disjointedly shoving your own beliefs and opinions into your work. Guys, when I first read this comic, this was actually my breaking point. I could not continue to read something this idiotically written, even ironically, because it's not even funny, it's just annoying, since this is just some dumbass author shoving her echo-chambered beliefs down your throat. I originally thought this was all going to be a so bad it's good hate watch like some of the other stuff I've covered on my channel, but this is not that at all. What this is a mildly irritating dive into the idiotic thought processes and teenage trauma of an out-of-touch hack of a feminist writer, barely guised as a generic high school tale. I'm only scratching the surface of why this comic is bad. I've covered about 32, maybe 33 pages up to this point, and the insanity and nonsense only gets worse as time passes. Stay tuned, boys. In the next entry, we're going to directly attempt to discuss Mandy as an actual character rather than the writer's mouthpiece, and display that the way she acts heavily affects what kind of person would enjoy this comic. To be continued in part 3. Oh, and let's not forget, you should be giving me money on Patreon. My current $10 donors are Duke Dragon Hearthfire the 10th, Ellamations, and Procrastinator Dave. And let's not forget my $5 donors, Dragonlight Z, Stormy Knight, and Travis. If you'd like to be in the credits of my videos as well, just catch me on patreon.com/blacklightjack. Thanks for watching, everybody.